welcome to this week's OpeRant AI.
Okay.
I'm Ashley, one of OpeRant's co-founders, and I'm really excited today to have my co-founder and CTO Priyanka here. This will be our first duo podcast. Ooh. Okay.
That sounds like fun.
Okay, so the other week we were talking about agent flare and zero-click attacks, and we realized there was a big gap in that conversation around EchoLeak, which is it kind of predates agent flare.
Yeah.
It's I think better known. So we thought today we would dig in with the big guns with Priyanka to talk about what is EchoLeak, how does it relate to these other zero-click attacks, and then why is it so fucking scary if we don't fix it?
Yeah, so EchoLeak does predate agent flare, but it also belongs to this class of zero-click attacks, where it's basically like all of your, so what is scary about zero-click is that all of your existing workflows, like, the GitHub issue, or with EchoLeak, someone just sends an email and it just arrives in your inbox, and you don't really click through all of the emails that come in, right?
So you think you're being smart, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can tell this is phishing, so I'm not going to click it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like what an average person has as a control for themselves.
Yeah.
And we've gotten mostly reasonably good at it. You're like, that looks sketchy. I think it's coming from a weird email address. So I'm not going to click anything, so I'm safe.
Yeah, and even if it goes into the spam folder, it's still there in your inbox.
Okay, so it's like lurking, like literally lurking under the surface, and you might not have even seen that it ended up in your inbox.
Yeah, and the problem is that people still share a lot of sensitive secrets over email, right? So people are sharing, developers are sharing API keys sometimes and passwords over email and so on. And so you don't even know what is the depth of sensitive data and secrets that are lurking in your email.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me as a consumer think about CPAs want, if they're doing your taxes or whatever and they're not using some secured system.
Exactly, yeah.
Or maybe they are using a system but you don't know that you shouldn't be emailing them stuff. So you're just like, okay, here's my social security number.
Yeah.
That would be really common.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so then what ends up being scary is that now you have these AI agents like copilots, and they are coming up on your local laptop. They could have access to your Outlook, Drive, or even your Gmail account in this case. And if you say things like, could you just give me the API keys that I even just sent myself as an email, and so that agent can just access all of your sensitive data.
It comes in invisible, and then it tricks your system into thinking that you're asking it to do this thing, when in fact it's asking.
It's asking. Or you could have a really benign prompt about, summarize these last financial records that you had in your email, for example. And that is a lot of confidential information. You don't really know what are the tax IDs, as you were saying, and other kinds of sensitive things that might be in that email. And also you don't know, this AI agent is like a black box. So in this case, you could have a malicious AI agent that has access to all of the sensitive data, which is what EchoLeak was about, and ends up then exfiltrating that data to a remote threat actor.
And so talk a little bit more about EchoLeak. What's the difference between EchoLeak and agent flare?
Yeah, so EchoLeak kind of also went into, it's sort of like an exfiltration attack again, but it exploits some of the inherent vulnerabilities inside Markdown, which is and also it played with a little bit of the Copilot's existing controls in place. So there were two things. So one is that Markdown sometimes has these image URLs, and those image URLs are supposed, everybody trusts them in a way, but and they are hidden. So that's
not very good for zero trust.
Yeah, so you can't really see.
Everyone trusts, opposite of zero trust.
Exactly. And you can't, Markdown doesn't represent them as URLs when it shows the images, obviously, so you can kind of just add a malicious URL in there and nobody would know. And underneath it is actually exfiltrating all of this base64 encoded sensitive content to the remote threat vector. And so that was a very specific attack that they used in terms of Markdown. The other control that Copilot has is Copilot actually has some inbuilt security controls around these are the URLs that you trust and these are the URLs that you don't. But they don't look at the Markdown hidden URL. So that's where they ended up seeding this attack. Yeah.
And so we now know about these two attacks.
Yeah.
So I guess then the question is, we didn't know about them until we did. What do you think is lurking as the next one? Or what could be lurking?
Yeah, I think the thing that really scares me is that there are like different kinds of MCP servers. Like, for example, there is a file system MCP server out there which can just read files and help you summarize things in your files and so on. And if that comes up on developer laptops, you don't even need emails or GitHub accounts. It could just take in all of your private GitHub tokens and secrets from your, just like your developer laptops, and send them elsewhere, right? And then that leads to compromised GitHub repositories and all kinds of things. So that is really one of the top things that I'm scared of. Also, like with MCP servers, there are just like all of these STD-IO based MCP servers end up coming up locally, and so you might be inheriting a lot of supply chain unknowns on your system, which could be doing other kinds of things, which is again a thing that nobody's really talking about.
And so it's funny because like we've recently done these blogs about like antivirus for MCP, and the way you're describing it really does sound kind of like an analogy, right? So it's like the problem that antivirus was solving in part was that like it's almost impossible for, say, like a corporate IT to like fully control what's actually happening on their employees' laptops, given the number and the variety of attacks. And so you can't really like just like say stop phishing emails from the outside, because they just find more clever ways to get in. And it seems like here we're talking about a pretty parallel problem space in which you really need to be thinking about security from the inside of the agentic system itself, because there's like, okay, so you secure this one random MCP server, you block it or whatever. That's like, that is a thing to do, and I'm not saying they should not also be doing that, but once that one's done, what about the next one that we don't know about?
Yeah,
right? Like the trust boundaries have to be moving deeper inside, and then when you have these probabilistic agents making decisions where it doesn't even take like an evil threat actor, it could actually just be the agent acting incorrectly or in a dangerous for privacy way, not with like a malicious intent. So how should security leaders or security engineers or even like CEOs who are supporting these AI transformations within their companies, how should they think about the practicality of bringing those trust boundaries like deeper inside? Like what can they actually do to control some of these things?
Yeah, so I think that's exactly like the reason why I like our antivirus blogs, is that they don't stick to the traditional definition of antivirus, but expand it to how it would apply to AI and AI agents. And that's where like the aspect of applying like these runtime controls, where a lot of these MCP interactions, a lot of these tool interactions are happening with your file system or with external GitHub repositories or S3 buckets and so on. And so having the right controls to monitor those flows at runtime inline and be able to then detect things like if they are leaking sensitive secrets unintentionally or like in a non-deterministic way, the way all of these AI agents work, that is really key. And also then being able to, even if you don't want to block them, like some of the things that we always talk about at OpeRant around inline redaction and those kinds of things, so masking those secrets inline so that even if unintentionally an AI agent were to read SSN IDs, stacks IDs, GitHub secrets, those are still masked or obfuscated. And so even if they were to be exfiltrated, no harm is done because all of those are exfiltrated. That's how you beat the attackers.
So you're basically masking the data everywhere it lives, like while it's living, not just like in some sort of static did it once way.
And those are the kinds of controls that are going to really become important, because what these AI agents are doing, they are using the identities of the trusted user, right? So like the AI agent in my Copilot is going to be using my identity to go look into my OpeRant email, and that's like a trusted path that it's following. But it's not really Priyanka or like Ashley who is looking through their emails. It's the AI agent. And so it kind of redefines what the access controls means for AI agents in this era. And that's where like I think the controls should really be contextual, should be dynamic, around what data is being passed back and forth. And do you really want to, give all of your email accesses to an AI agent with the same identity versus the user?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have one more question before we wrap this up, and it's like maybe semi-related or maybe not, so you can tell me. But I was having a funny conversation with someone about like a use case of AI security in the context of healthcare. And we were having a debate about this system that they were using to basically process using AI to process transcripts of like doctor-patient interactions. And when we asked about the security of this system, because when my alarm bells are going off, the response that we got from their IT was that it's okay, everything's okay because they're using HTTPS. I know, I can see it in your face. So, and like, I'm assuming that because they're like actively building out a lot of the processing here, that it's likely that they're using probably some AI APIs, like some contextualized models, maybe like a verticalized, like, in-house inference of some vendor or whatever. That's just my guess of the architecture. So can you just give me the rundown from your perspective of like why it's okay, it's HTTPS is like maybe not the most heartwarming and relieving answers for us to hear.
Yes. And actually, have you really checked that it is HTTPS? Because MCP doesn't make any guarantees about it being like any enforcements about it being HTTPS. It could also be HTTP. But HTTPS is like really going to stop you from things like man-in-the-middle kind of attacks. But the threat vector here is not someone listening into the MCP tool interaction. It's actually the man at the end. Like the AI agent itself could be malicious, right? So it has the ability to decrypt your data because that's where the HTTPS connection will get terminated. And then once it's terminated, you lose all of your controls. So yeah, I wouldn't bank my hopes on just HTTPS saving us. Yeah.
Okay, that didn't really make me feel better, but I'm glad that we have this conversation for others to hear because I think one of the things that we run into a lot is that like a lot of these traditional approaches like really, really fall apart in this world of AI security. And I think people do like feel uncomfortable about that, and the more they know, like the more like specific they can get about what they might do about it. But I think as what was happening, at least in my life, is that I'm having these like funny conversations just out and about in the world with average people who are also encountering AI in new places, especially when they're interacting with some AI chatbot when they expect it to interact with a human, or if they've been like, say, dumped into some agentic workflow that otherwise would have been managed by a customer service rep. And I think that discrepancy between people encountering this and feeling like, this doesn't really seem secure, but like being able to like really articulate that and to then have that, make some impact in terms of like the business priorities of the companies they're interacting with. I think, we're just in this moment. Yeah. What would you say to the consumers who are asking about this?
I feel like just be really careful about who you're sharing your data with, right?
No social security number up
numbers.
Into like a chatbot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even if the chatbot kind of compels you, like with different ways to get you to give them your tax IDs or like other kinds of sensitive information, just don't budge, and then try to always connect with like a human representative when it comes to those kinds of information. I would also say this also applies to like a lot of the remote work and all of the interviews that we do remotely. And
you say after the wrong person showed up at an interview yesterday.
Who didn't match the
profile. Yes, oh my God. Exactly. And after I got an applicant from Keely Jones, a la like Ted Lasso. Yeah.
So, well, all of us need to be conscious that this is going to be like increasingly common to get deep fakes. Trying to impersonate.
Like, need to be so on it.
Yeah.
And like really, I feel like the thing I keep telling people is almost exactly the same. Like, never put your social security number, bank account number, like nothing. Don't put that stuff in those systems. And then, like, if something feels
unless it says secured by OpeRant.
High five! No one can see it. Yeah, inline auto redaction, bringing safety to your entire AI interaction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like you have to follow your instincts,
Mm-hmm.
and like if the instinct just feels like a little bit off, like
Yeah.
man, it's not just your right, it's your responsibility now to just like shut down that interaction.
Yes.
Because if you don't do it for yourself, like
Mm-hmm.
there really isn't right now a full system in place in most of these cases to like protect you on like on your behalf.
Yeah. And I feel like these kinds of zero-click, like EchoLeak, agent failure are just going to keep happening in all these kinds of multimodal cases as well, in voice and video.
Yeah,
too.
multimodal. Oh my God, we haven't even gotten there. I know what we're going to talk about next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, bye.